Hello and welcome to Catalyze Music Academy. My name is Zaak Kerstetter, and today I want to switch gears from what I've been doing on the channel so far, which has mostly been focusing on the more technical aspects of making music. And I want to switch gears and talk a bit about a bit more of like the philosophical side of making music, like what it means to be a producer or an artist. And specifically today, look at some techniques that you can utilize when you are feeling stuck making music, whether it's you're hitting writer's block or you're just kind of in a creative rut and are not feeling super inspired and you're just kind of getting stuck a little bit. The situation that both myself and pretty much every producer I've ever met has been through probably many times. I want to take a look at some of the ways we can get around that and get back into making music the way you want to. But before we do that, I do just want to let you know, if you are enjoying the channel, please feel free to subscribe. If you are already subscribed, I love you and you are a boss and you're perfect in every way. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. So the first method I found that works really, really well for getting out of a creative block is to impose really strict creative restrictions on yourself. And you can do this in a lot of different ways, but I found that the root source of a lot of these issues when it comes to making music, a lot of the frustration when it comes to making music, is we have infinite choices. You can make any style music you want, any genre, any tempo, any key, using a million different synthesizers, a million effects. There's infinite samples out there. You have so many choices you need to make. And so it can be really overwhelming and can form this kind of decision paralysis that can really get in the way. So one of the ways around that is to restrict the number of choices that you can possibly make when it comes to making music. And there's a wide variety of ways to approach this. So for example, if you come from a percussive background, if you are a drummer and you're really good at making beats, but chords and melodies are really tough for you, try making an ambient track. Try making a song that is, just those things and has no drums whatsoever. And this will do two things. Number one, it'll force you to approach the creative process in a slightly different way than what you're normally doing. It will also force you to deal with the things you don't want to deal with. The things that you struggle with are the things that you actually need to take a look at the most. So on the flip side of that, if you are really good at writing chords and melodies and you suck at writing drums, try writing a song that is just drums, which may sound a little weird at first, but you can take a look at examples like Mr. Hi-Hat by Max Roach, where he plays a song using just a hi-hat, and it forces him to make really interesting creative choices about what kinds of sound you can get out of a hi-hat that he probably wouldn't have made if he had a whole drum set in front of him. So by restricting yourself, it actually expands a lot of your creative capabilities and forces you to approach your process in a slightly different way. Another kind of famous example of this is a lot of artists will have different color periods. So Picasso, for example, had his blue period where he spent about 3 years only painting using the color blue, which again forced him to make really interesting choices about what do light and shadow mean if you're only using the color blue. But it also allowed him to really intimately understand the nature of the color blue. So these are things you can be doing when you're making music, whether in terms of restricting what kind of styles of music you're making, what kind of genres you're making, writing in a key that you've never written in before, especially a non-Western key, can be a really great way to kind of break out of a lot of your creative habits that you get into when you're making music. Another way to approach this is having really heavy time restrictions. This can be another way to do creative restrictions besides stylistically and technically having restrictions, also having really heavy time restrictions. So for example, you could sit down, put on a stopwatch and set it for an hour, and you have to start a song from scratch and then finish it within 1 hour, which is, even for an advanced producer, it's pretty hard to do. It's a lot of work, but it forces you to, again, make decisions. And I found one of the biggest ways that I get stuck when I'm making music is the more time I spend working on a track, the more I start to second guess myself or I start to question my own decision-making process. And by putting a really strict time limit on myself, I have to just make a thing, make my drums and move on to the next thing, and make my bass, move on to the next thing. I can't spend 30 minutes tweaking the filter settings on my synthesizer because I don't have time to do that. So if you want to become a better producer and you want to get better at making decisions while making music, impose really heavy time limits on yourself and do this regularly. Do this, a couple times a week. And if you do that for a month, not only would you be a better producer, but I guarantee you, you will kind of train your brain to start making more decisions and forcing yourself to finish more music and do it faster and more efficiently. So creative restrictions are a fantastic way, both in terms of time as well as technique, for getting new ideas out of your brain into the computer and making some really interesting sounds and not worrying too much about the end result necessarily. So speaking of not necessarily worrying about the end result, method number 2 I found for getting through those kind of like creative writer's blocks is to focus more on the process. And what I mean by that is, in our modern society, especially the world of social media that we live in, we're very results driven. What people care about is how much money did you make? How many followers do you have? How many plays did you get? All this kind of stuff is like the result of your project, right? However, art itself is very process oriented. I think the value of a work of art is not just how much you sold the artwork for, but what did you as the artist learn along the way? How did you grow as a human being, and how did your artistic vision grow and change over time? So I think that when you are focused primarily on the results, if you're focused on how many plays you got and all this kind of stuff, it puts a lot of pressure on the creative process to be something perfect, to be something that people like, to be something that is marketable or sellable, which is fine, but that can really weigh you down and that can really stress you out. So if you are focused primarily on the process and what you learned along the way and less focused on the results, I found that I not only make better music, but I also don't stress about it so much. So I know it's really hard to do. It's much easier said than done. Try focusing on the nature of what you're doing as the true value of it. The act of making music being the value, as opposed to, how many copies of your album you sold as being the value. So try it out, see if it works for you. But I think for me, that's helped me out quite a bit. Another great way to get out of a creative block is to be inspired by everything. And this might sound really obvious, but a lot of times I find I make the best music when I'm listening to the most music, and I'm listening to a wide variety of music. There's a really famous saying that good artists copy and great artists steal. So if you are being influenced by a wide variety of music, that means when you get stuck on something, you have lots of resources, you have lots of reference tracks, you have lots of inspiration that you can draw from. So for example, if you are, if I'm making a track and I know that it needs something, but I'm not sure what, if I am critically and analytically listening to lots of different music, I have lots of resources to draw from to get ideas from. So maybe I just need some more shakers, and that's the thing I needed. But I can learn that by listening to lots of songs that I love. I especially recommend this if you are making like one style music, like dubstep, for example. Don't listen to other dubstep for inspiration. Listen to funk music, reggae, house music, whatever, because having a wide range of influences is going to allow you to discover your own voice as an artist and make some really interesting creative choices, as opposed to just making your song sound like all the other songs in that genre. So listen to lots of music, listen to a variety of music, and critically listen to it and analytically listen to it. And that can be a great way to kind of figure out what your tracks are missing, where you are missing elements in your song, and put them actually in there and learn from other people. Method number 4 that I want to recommend for dealing with writer's block is to take a break and take care of yourself. And I'm not saying take a break from music entirely or like quit music or anything like that, but like go outside for a little bit. It can be really, really important. I think a lot of times in the music world, there's this pressure to always be grinding and always to be like just bashing your head against the wall trying to make music. Sometimes it's more beneficial to like get a good night's sleep and then wake up the next day, eat breakfast, take care of yourself, then actually get in there when your brain's actually working. A lot of times this idea that like we spend all of our day on computers, whether it's for work or for school or for entertainment with like, movies and video games and things like that. You're in front of the computer, in front of the screen all the time. And that can be really draining psychologically, can be really stressful. So go outside, take your dog for a walk, go eat a sandwich. If you're feeling stuck on something, don't be frustrated in front of a computer. Take care of your mental health. And this can also include like having other creative projects you're working on, like, doing drawing or graphic design or painting or writing or whatever else it is that you're into. Can be really helpful just to get your brain off of making music just for a little bit. That way, when you come back, you're feeling refreshed and you're feeling energized and you're feeling actually like ready to get started. I've also found that there's this phenomenon of, I don't know if you ever had this experience where you're trying to remember the name of something, like remember the name of a movie you haven't seen in a long time. And the more you think about it, the less you can actually remember it. And then when you stop thinking about it, you're like, oh, it was Land Before Time or something like that. And Same thing happens with music. If you are like really trying to force it, if you're really trying to push it really hard and it's feeling frustrating, taking a break for 12 hours, 24 hours, 48 hours, and then you come back and like, oh, now I have fresh ears, I have like a fresh energy going into making the song, and it can make all the difference in the world. So don't feel like you have to like power through these tough moments. Like, take care of yourself, take care of your mental health, take care of your physical health, and that can honestly make you a better producer and allow you to make better decisions when you are making music. Method number 5 for dealing with writer's block that I found. This is something I've been doing a lot recently, and I know I said I wasn't going to get too technical in this video, so I'll probably save it for another video, but make the computer do the work for you. And there are a lot of ways to approach this, but I'm specifically talking about randomization. So there are tons of tools in Live for randomization, whether it's the random MIDI effect, the random setting on the arpeggiator, randomizing follow actions. There's all kinds of Max for Live devices. There's like random arpeggiators, like things like the bouncing notes where you can kind of randomize things. Set up these tools that will randomize all kinds of elements for you, play a couple of notes and let the computer do the rest of the work for you, resample it to audio, and then you're left with something that's actually really interesting. And I covered this once in a video earlier about random percussion, but this can apply to chord progressions, it can apply to melodies. There's all kinds of different ways to approach randomization and then capturing that randomization and then using that as the foundation of your song. So if you're feeling stuck at the very kind of early stages of songwriting, where you are just like don't even know what notes to put in there, let the computer do it for you, and you just engineer how the computer behaves and how it responds to certain notes and things like that. And then you pick the best bits. You kind of cherry pick the best bits, and then boom, you have the foundation of a song. So you can do this with samples, you can do this with MIDI. There's lots of fun ways you can approach this, and it can be really great because you can kind of turn off your brain. If you're somebody like me who gets really heady and overly analytical about a lot of the stuff that I'm writing, I don't need to worry about that when I'm using this methodology. So you can let the computer do the work and you just kind of respond to it and then pick the best bits and then use that to write your song. And that can be really, really helpful. So try it out. It's a really fun way to approach music making that takes a lot of the stress and the pressure off of yourself to write like the perfect melody or the perfect chord progression or something like that. It can be really fun. The last method for dealing with writer's block that I want to cover in this video is going to involve building a community. This is really, really important. I generally think that the primary goal of music is community. That's what makes it so special, whether it's going to concerts and bringing people through that, or if you're in the music production world, connecting with other people who make music, learning from each other, growing with each other. That's a big part of why I started this channel, is to kind of bring people together to kind of build a community around the idea of just making music. But this can be super, super beneficial for a wide variety of reasons. First off, if you are feeling stuck on a song, send it to somebody else you know who makes music and get their feedback on it. They could say, hey, your bass line sucks, or you need to delete this section, or they can tell you things. And if you find people who know what they're talking about and you can trust them enough to be honest, it's really, really valuable. Almost every single song I've ever released, I've sent out to a number of different people just to get feedback before I finish it and put the final touches on myself, because it's really, really helpful to get an outside perspective that you can trust. On top of that, collaboration is really, really valuable. If you are making music and you're feeling, you're working on a song and you like it, but it's just, you're hitting that wall where you get stuck, send it to somebody else, again, who you trust, make them deal with it. They're going to approach it with brand new ears and brand new perspective and do something and then send it back to you. And then all of a sudden you have a brand new thing to work on. So collaboration is super, super valuable in these situations. A lot of my favorite songs that I've ever written have been collaborations with other people. So try that out. And that's oftentimes why you see so many producer collectives and DJ collectives that are gaining a lot of traction, because not only can they help each other out, but they can also kind of learn from each other, grow together as a community, and that can be super, super helpful. No man is an island, especially not music producers. And I think this day and age, with the age of the internet and everybody's so isolated, reaching out to other people and building community can be really valuable. This can be done in a number of ways, whether it's digitally online. There's lots of producer communities out there that you can be part of, as well as in person. There's things like producer meetups that are happening all over the place. Not so much during COVID, but they're happening. Ableton user groups, same kind of thing. There are ways for people to get together, help each other out, and it can be really, really valuable. If you are looking for a community to join, I just started a Discord channel for Catalyze. The link should be in the description below. So a little quick self-promo for that. We're gonna be doing things like remix contests and like sample pack song challenges and just general kind of like helping each other out, and again, trying to grow together as a community. So if you are feeling in that creative rut, you're feeling a place where you're feeling stuck, get some advice from people around you and find people who are interested in investing in you, and you can invest in them in terms of helping each other out and again, growing together. So that is it. Those are some of my favorite methods for dealing with writer's block. I've dealt with it many, many times over many, many years. And it can be really frustrating, but don't be too hard on yourself. Like let the process flow, connect with the people, and just keep focusing on growing it little by little, and you'll get to the place you want to be eventually. So hopefully you found that useful. If you did, please let me know in the comment section below, and I can make more videos like this. Or if you have other ways that you have personally dealt with writer's block and effective ways for getting through it, I would love to hear that in the comment section. So thanks for watching, and hopefully I will see you again soon.